May the 4th be with you. Hi, I'm Daniel, and today I'm going to show you how to install Oqtane, which is a crazy new .NET Core 5 Blazor platform for creating applications, and someday maybe even websites. And I'm going to show you how to install version 2, how to add languages, and also how to add an extension, in this case a content management plugin called Too Sexy. So let's just get started. I'm going to guide you through this process, and we're going to be using a checklist. Here's the short link to it. I'll also include it in the description, but I'm going to walk you through it using this checklist so that you can repeat the same steps without much complications. We'll also keep the checklist updated so that as your as Oqtane evolves and the instructions have to change, the video might still mostly match, but the checklist will be kept up to date. So what you see now in front of me is a virtual machine I just set up. It's still like brand new. And what I did is I created a virtual machine following these steps here in the checklist. So this on the left side is the checklist that I'll be using. And here's just some instructions how to create the virtual machine if you're starting from scratch and just want to run a test. Basically, the following steps after this will also apply to any other Windows 10 or Windows Server, but very often you might just want to give it a try without messing up anything on your current environment. So the next step is to make sure you have a SQL Server installed. Now, here's a checklist for that. You can click on the link, or in my case, let's just pretend we don't know how to do that, and let's just Google this in a window on the side here. SQL Server download, and here we are. And basically what we want to do is we want to get the free special edition here. Your screen will probably look a little different, more like this. This is of course because I'm now in a slightly zoomed mode because of the size. Let me open this, and it's going to ask me if I want to allow admin permissions, which I will. And I'm just going to run the basic setup right now. Now, it might take a little long, so it's possible that I'll just cut the video here and then continue again once it's ready. So let's see. And cut. So we're back. Since I assume you're not a watch paint dry kind of person, we're going to cut that part out. It took about 3 minutes to do on this virtual machine. Now again, maybe you already have SQL Server or you're doing it on your PC. It might be a bit faster, but basically we just ran the basic setup. Now, as you can see in the checklist to the side here, we just got the download. We also ran it. We did the basic installation, and now it says we should click on this thing here to install the management tools. So basically, if we don't do that, we would just have a database, which is great for a server. But as soon as we try to interact with the system, it's useful to have the management tools. So let's just do this. It's going to open a download page on the Microsoft website, and let's start that as well. So again, the difference is simply that this will give us a tool to work with it. If we would be hosting Oqtane on a lot of servers, we may have a lot of databases, but usually we don't put the management interface on every computer. In our case, of course, both for the demo so that you can get started, also just in case you don't have it yet, you're going to want to do this. So let's start this. So we just did the download. Check. Yes, we do want to allow it to run as administrator. And now we're just going to also run the installer. Same thing as before. It's not rocket science, and we'll just wait till we see this screen appear. I believe this only takes a few seconds, so I probably won't cut this out. And as you can see, we're just using the standard setup here. In some cases, you may want to do something more custom. For example, in the standard setup, we just have Windows users, Windows logins, which is great for really good security. But there are valid scenarios where you would do it differently. Just to get you started, we're trying to keep everything simple. So you could have chosen a custom installation, but then you should know more what you're doing, in which case you're probably not the kind of person to watch this video. Looks like it's taking a pinch longer. I think we'll cut this next few minutes out as well. And cut. We are back. So the setup is just completed. This is just a print screen, so let me close that. Yes, we have done this. We've done the installation. And let's close this. We are done with the database installation. So that has been done. We didn't do this, so let's just take that off. Now, the next step is to make sure we get IIS configured correctly. This is quite tricky because Oqtane uses some, and Blazor uses some really new features which are not installed by default. So let's go ahead and do that. First of all, let's go to turning Windows features on and off. As you can see here, we'll just search for that, turn Windows features on and off, and now you can see this dialog. I'll keep the checklist open here on the next side because the important bits are that we go to the Internet Information Services. Let me try to make this a pinch bigger. These are here. Now I could just tick them right now, but that would not cover everything. Let's look at the minimum that we must have to get this to fly. If we open up the web management section, we want the console. That's great. And then if we look at the additional services here, there are some bits you would typically miss. So, by the way, we don't actually need the .NET frameworks, but we really need the WebSocket protocol. That is like a new way for web servers to work with the clients. It's actually been out for like 10 years almost, but it's an open connection. So normally a web server will just ask for something like get me page so-and-so, it will get the data back, and that's it. With WebSockets, the page and the server have like a live connection, and the server can also just suddenly tell the page, oh, by the way, something happened. And for that, we must enable the WebSocket protocol. Let's also just make sure we have all the common features enabled, and we really are not allowed to set the WebDAV publishing. That one is really bad. If you activate that, it will not work. So let's click OK. This was the minimal setup. You could also do more, including activating all the .NET framework stuff. So if your PC already has a lot of this, just verify you have the ones I just mentioned and you don't have the WebDAV, because that will break stuff. Okay, so we did this. We verified that we have the WebSocket protocol and we did disable WebDAV. If you don't do this, it will fail. So, got this covered. Now, let's wait a little bit. And it has completed the changes as we expect. So, way to go. Now, let's have a quick peek at browsing to localhost. And if this works now, we have IIS set up correctly. Of course, if you're doing this on your own developer machines, you might have had IIS running already. So it might not even react to localhost because you might have changed configurations. But at least if you're doing this in a new virtual machine, this is the way to go. So we can now say IIS is ready. In the next step, let's get a URL rewriter installed. This is a special plugin for IIS that makes sure that like URLs can be mapped around wildly. Basically, probably just about every hosting environment has this installed. So of course, if we're going to test this, we must remember to do it ourselves. In a professional environment, you'll probably already have this on the server, just like you should already have IIS. But remember, your hoster may not have activated WebSockets yet, and he may have activated WebDAV, and that would break Oqtane. So let's again put this to the side so that we can continue to watch what's going on here. We're working on this. As you can see, we should get this screen, which we just did. We should get this screen now, which we see at the moment. Let's hit install. Of course, we accept to these generous license agreements. And if it's all done, this is what we will be seeing in just a moment. This one really doesn't take so long, so I don't need to cut it out. Okay, we have done that. We have some more advertisements, but let's skip that. And we are done with the URL rewriter. Now, what we also need is the .NET Core hosting bundle. So IIS is a generic web server which could run just about anything, of course, including PHP or even really old stuff. But this stuff here is now super new, of course. Super new, super flashy, super cool. And we must really run this so that it understands ASP.NET Core, which is like the newest ASP.NET in the world. Right now it's version 5.05 as of this video. Of course, when you're doing it, you might end up having a newer release. So again, as we can see in print screens here, we just have to go through this and install this, confirm that we really agree with running this software, and pray that it really is the original from Microsoft. But I think we're good to go. So we're just doing that right now. We're basically through with this. So if we have all this done, our server is ready to start putting Oqtane on it. So we're done. Now, in the next step, we're going to get a copy of Oqtane. So let's go look at the Git releases. I'm going to also move it over here. This is the GitHub Oqtane releases. It's in the link here. And this is the latest version as of 2 weeks ago. Now, there's a lot of stuff you could download. If we look at the screenshot here, you'll see all we care about is the installer. So let's grab that. The other packages are often for people who want to develop something, or for people who need a Nuget package, for example, which is also something which is more for developers trying to modify Oqtane or change it for their installation. So we have this, and let's go open the file. Basically what we have now, let me also move this to the side a bit, is a zip containing the whole system. Now let's go back here, we just downloaded it, and let's go to this folder here. I'm going to open a new Explorer. And for our demo, we're just going to keep all the names fairly simple. We're going to make a folder called awesome.octane.me. Note that any domain ending with octane.me will point to localhost, to the current server. So just so you understand that, anything like daniel.octane.me, ijungleboy.octane.me will always point to the current server. So especially for testing, this is great, and for development too, because we just plan to access it from the same machine. Okay, so we just created this folder, and I'm just going to copy everything from here into this folder. Yes, of course, we're pretty sure of what we're doing. So we are copying. And as you can see, we just are moving that, or putting the zip contents into there. And it's important now that it's really in that folder. Just make sure it's not in a subfolder, because that would kind of break what we're trying to do here. So we unzipped it, check. Let's close these screenshots. Now, after copying the files, it's important that we set up IIS to get this right. This is also in here at the moment. We'll create an own step in the checklist just in a moment. But the next step is to get IIS Manager up and to create a new site. And we're going to call it the very same as we were calling our folder and everything, just to make sure that we don't confuse anybody as to what we're actually doing here. Because if we would use different names, things would get a little messy. So just so you know what happened, he set up a site here, but he also set up an application pool. An application pool is like a runtime which could run multiple sites. But this application pool also has like a virtual user. That's for security reasons. So this is just to make sure that if this thing is running, it can be looked at as an own user on the system, and it can have its own permissions. So the next step is to give our folder these permissions that we need. So let's go to here, edit permissions, and go to security. Just so you know what we're doing here, I accessed it through IIS, but it's the same thing as if I would be doing it from the folder itself. It's just going to the folder permissions. Let's hit edit and add, and here's the text that we need to type in. It's a little funny, and it's really important that this here is the name of the current computer. In my case, since it's a virtual machine, it's just working. If it were your desktop and you're in a domain, this would probably show the name of your domain and it would not do the right thing. Then you'd have to switch locations, say current computer, and that's it. So let's check names, and if he does that, you know he found it. So let's hit OK, and let's give him modify permissions and apply that. This was necessary so that the folder can actually be accessed by the system. So that was giving permissions to the folder. I believe we did everything in this checklist now. You can go through it a little more slowly if you're playing with it. And here's an optional step. You could change the application pool settings to something, but we don't really need that for right now. That's in case you're running .NET Framework, you could say you don't want to use that because you don't need it. Since I set it up without .NET Framework, this is not even necessary. Now let's go and get an empty database set up, okay? For this, we're going to have to go to SQL Server Management Studio. That's the other thing we installed just before. And just so you know, this often takes like half a minute or a minute to start. This is normal. The reason is that Microsoft implemented some kind of a security mechanism which checks encryption keys and stuff like that. So this is quite normal, even though it may feel slightly annoying sometimes. Let's connect. And again, I'll just move this to the side of the screen so that we can walk through the steps here. We just connected. You could type in local, you can type in the name of the database, of the server. And now let's go here and say new database. Now, just as you see as well, we're also going to give it the very same name just to keep things simple. This was from before, so awesome.octane.me. By default, SQL Server is going to put these files somewhere. For our test setup, this is fine. Of course, if you're running this in a more enterprise scenario or something, you're going to have to think about this a moment more. But for right now, this is all that we're going to do. We now have an empty database to have Oqtane run inside it. Now, at the moment, the website would not be allowed to work with this database because it's like, ooh, protected. So we're going to have to make sure that we create a new user in the SQL Server, that SQL Server knows about our application pool. So here's how this works. We're going to go, I have some issues with the mouse here. And we're going to create a new login. And again, this is what we're seeing here. We're going to say new login, and we're going to type in the previous name. And as you can tell, this is a virtual user. It doesn't really exist, but the system is fine with this. After typing it in, we're going to go and check out the user mappings because we want to make sure that our new database can be used by this application pool. And that's about it. If we've done this, your database is ready. And basically, we've now given this user rights to this application. Okay, the database is ready. And we should now be able to just go to this address. Let's try that. And if everything works, we should be seeing an installer from Oqtane starting up right now. Because we set up so the database, by the way, wouldn't even matter yet, but everything's working. If something doesn't work at this step, the database is not the problem because he doesn't know about the database yet. If something doesn't work in this step, then the true issue is something in the IS installation, in the folder permissions, and very, very common that you forgot the WebSockets. So we're going to now say we want to use our SQL Server. We're going to just say here's some screenshots so that you can see what it will look like. SQL Server, we're just going to say local. By the way, this term local DB, that's for like a really lightweight special hosting scenario. So just ignore that. Local, our database name has the same name as our user and our domain. This keeps things simple. We're going to use integrated security, which means that the identity of the application pool of IIS is going to be used to access the database. And we gave it permissions for that. Now let's, I just copy pasted the password from here. And the email, we're just going to make up one, awesome@octane.me. This will not work, of course. If everything works in the next step, then the database is working. So let's watch that. Okay, now the password saver is going to offer this, but this is now your first running Oqtane solution. It's working, it's doing everything you need. Let's have a quick peek if this succeeds. So the username is always host by default. I strongly suggest you make a new host user later on. Look for a checklist for that because it's not quite easy. Let's log in. And if you see more buttons now, you're on track. Everything seems to work. Let's just do a quick test here and hit edit on something. For example, I can do changing a title. There you go. Or I can edit the contents here. Awesome. And save that. And we're good to go. So that was like the first block. We have now installed Oqtane successfully. Now, in truth though, there's probably a bit more to it than that, because you might want to also install languages, extra plugins, etc. And just because this is all stuff that isn't documented well in the internet, we're just going to keep on going with this video and do that as well, because we think it'll be really valuable for you to just get going. So how do additional languages work? We haven't managed to write the checklists yet for it, but I'm just going to show you, and the checklist will be updated in no time. So what we have right now is we have this folder Oqtane, and what I also did before is I downloaded the LanguagePacks. They're still kind of hard to get, by the way. So oh, I think I put them on my desktop. Just a moment. Here, Oqtane translations. They're still kind of hard to get. You still have to build them yourself and stuff, but we're going to try to put that in the checklist. But basically, all you need to do is copy these folders into here so that you now in your path have more languages. Note that our German pack is still fake. There is none yet, but there should be one in a few days. Now, after adding the languages, the system doesn't know about them yet. To make that happen, you actually have to go into this funny file called app settings, which is a JSON file. Now, this is probably quite heavyweight to open Visual Studio just to open it, edit a JSON file, but okay. So we're going to say the default culture is ENUS, and we're also going to say we have ENUS, we have DEDE, and we have Dutch. Okay, those are like English US is like built in by default, and he doesn't want to save this. Okay, I guess this is because this is a test virtual machine. I'm just going to copy this and skip Visual Studio because we're just going to open this with Notepad. Okay. Oh, this is probably a security issue because the folder is like highly protected, right? It's one of those. So we're gonna have to. I'm gonna have to work around this quickly. I'm gonna go to PowerShell as an admin. I'm gonna open Notepad from here as an admin because now I should have write permissions to that folder. Okay, so because I'm in as an admin, I have to open it directly. This is all because it's not like my normal environment, and so of course everything is slightly more restrictive than in a normal setup, but since you too may run into these issues, I guess it's totally fine if you see this happen. Okay, I was now able to save it. Let's go back to Oqtane, and nothing has happened yet. The reason is we need to restart Oqtane for this all to take effect, which we'll do right now. And it should now pick up the languages, and it should now also pick up the configuration that I changed. You will often see such messages like, oh, something is broken, please reload. But that's just because, again, it lost connection and it's trying to regain that. If this looks correct now, we should now be able to go to language management, and I should now have more languages here. So that's a good thing. Now there's one little thing we want to do first. First we want to pretend we have a no language as the default language because as of now there is no real English language pack yet. But let's add German as well. Now you see we have the unknown language and we have Dutch as well. And the unknown language, in our case this is English, is now our default. We now have these options here. And basically that was it to get multi-language set up. So that was just a very short step getting multi-language in there. I will probably cut that out and make another short video just for languages, but I'm going to keep this in here because, again, I promised installation, languages, and let's add one more module. To do that, we activated languages, check. And I'm going to now install a really cool module which we created. It's a structured content system where you can create your own content types, your fields. It has an image resizer built in. It has multi-language content management, content layout, application development. It has a lot of stuff in it. And it's been running on DNN for like 9 years now. And we just ported it to Oqtane as well. So let's get that installed. We're going to go to the releases here on GitHub, and we're just going to download, not the installer, because that one is for DNN. We're going to download the Nuget package. So we downloaded it, and now we're going to have to copy it to a funny location. So this again is the Oqtane folder, and we're going to have to put it in www modules. That's just a convention. There would also be ways to try to install it directly in the UI of the system, but there are some problems with that currently with larger files, and this one's about 12 megabytes. So this isn't going to work if we do it with the easy way. But this installation of a Nuget package works with any kind of module in Oqtane. So we have the latest. This is, by the way, taken care of. We have a host log, and we just downloaded it. We copied it. And I will first show you what happens next if I now restart Oqtane. There's just one minor detail which will still be missing, but we'll look at that in just a second. Let's restart the application. And if we watch the modules folder, you'll see that the Nuget package will disappear in a few seconds. That's because it's been processed, imported, and it's all there. Now, of course, because we just restarted Oqtane, it's going to complain for a moment, but you can see it's up and running again. Now, how would I know that it works? Well, I could, for example, just select one of these modules, like a content module, and add it. We're going to see an error next because we skipped one step in the installation, but I want to show you this, that same thing. If you would see the error, you would not be too surprised. Now, we added it, and it's at the bottom here. And now it says, wait a second, something's missing. Please get the dependencies and put them here. So that's the step we didn't do yet. Okay. Now on the releases here, we also have the dependencies, which we're just going to grab next. And I'm just going to unzip this here in my downloads. The reason why TooSexy needs these dependencies is two reasons. First of all, as of now, Oqtane still has a little bug. Something got forgotten in the distribution, and that is the system drawing common. It'll be in the next release of Oqtane, but it's missing right now. The second one is that there's a folder containing additional DLLs that we can compile Razor on the fly. So I'll be able to just write Razor, and it'll just be there in a second because it compiles it on the fly, but there's still something missing in Oqtane to get that to work. So let's just drag this in here. Of course, do this for everything. And that's it. Now we have the dependencies in here. As always, let's quickly restart the application. And we should now be good to go. Let's just give this a quick peek. It's showing us the typical, oh, please don't forget to reload. And now we're here. So what has happened? First of all, let me close this for a second. The content block now looks the way it should. Let me just quickly kill some of the blocks in here so that we don't, that we have our stuff on top. Okay, so we now have the content block here. And if you open this the first time, it's going to ask you whether you want to create your very own stuff or whether you'd just like to start with some built-in stuff. And this is because you could configure the content types to be anything you want. Now, in 99% of the use cases, just go with the recommendation. You'll be good to go. So we're just going to install this, and this is going to contain a bunch of bundles like arrangements, picture left, picture right, video imports, link tiles, all that kind of stuff. And here you can see it. So let's just start with a very simple one called a very basic content. And you can see now here we just have this built in. So that means Too Sexy is working. And just to kind of finish off the demo here, let me quickly show you how this will actually work, because I have two pictures here. Let's go to demo and say Oqtane is awesome. You have rich text, of course, and let's just pull in the picture for this video blog and save that. And as you can see, it's working. Now there's one detail you probably didn't notice yet, but at the moment, this just has one language. So let's go and activate more languages in Too Sexy, because you could have the platform have more languages. Oh, I misclicked something there. Than Too Sexy knows, because you might prepare languages and not publish them yet. So let's go to the language management here and say, okay, we now have at least Dutch, English, and Netherlands activated. And if I now go to edit, oh, you already saw that. If you already now go to edit, we can now say, okay, German has everything the same except for a different title. And let's say Dutch has the same thing, but it has a different picture. So we're still in English, we're still seeing this. If I now go to German, I should see a different title. And if I go to Dutch, oh, no, not unknown language, but Dutch, I will see a different picture. What's also really cool is these pictures have been resized automatically to the right size. And there's way more. So, oh, this is Dutch, I guess. I'm a little confused with Dutch. But let me quickly go back to our unknown language, maybe add another app module. So there's way more. I'm just doing you the ultra fast walkthrough here. I'm going to install a gallery, a swiper, and all that kind of stuff, just so you see the full installation experience and can do this yourself. Okay, so we installed these three default apps, and let's say we would like to see the swiper in action. Well, here we go. I guess it doesn't have a lot of pictures yet. Let's quickly drop the top module just to have a cleaner page again. And yeah, now we could start handing in slides and say, nice swiper. And we would say that as an effect, my favorite is always the cube. And now it's empty. Now we're going to add a slide. We're going to just give it in the picture again from before. Some optional awesome, and then we're going to add another slide. We're going to put in this picture here, Oqtane, and now we have the swiper app as well. And so there's way more, but in summary, what you just watched is how to install Oqtane, how to activate languages and configure them, and how to install an extra module, in this case Too Sexy, installing content types, having it multi-language, and everything. So you can see Oqtane is really, really far. Even though the technology is brand new, you can already do amazing stuff with it. Please go ahead and try it. We really hope you love it, and we also hope you love Too Sexy, because it's the only system that runs both on DNN and on Oqtane, and lets you create apps which will run on both platforms too. Thank you for watching. Daniel Mettler from Tusik Internet Solutions in Switzerland, and may the 4th be with you.